Hey, this is Dustin Rhodes with Dream Modeling. Hey, here today to start going over. I know we're just starting training today, so there's lots of good things that we're going to be starting. Now, first thing we're going to talk about is the 10 key success, man. One of the things we want to make sure is, again, we approach, right? These steps work like a key. Each key I need to do is get to the next door of the presentation to, again, make sure at the end it's a logical conclusion on why we're able to earn your customer's business, right? So we're going to go over lots of different techniques, tricks, NLP, lots of things that are going to help you really maximize your success in the next career. Congratulations on being chosen to be one of the best in the industry to be able to join our team. So congratulations one more time from me to you and your family. So let's jump right in and talk about the approach, right? So when we talk about step number one, it's called approach, entry, and warm up. So there's a couple different things in the approach, entry, and warm up that we have to look at accomplishing, right? So this short little video based on the approach is going to really talk about mindset, right? Approach is really how you wake up in the day. It's how we get our mindset. It's what we eat. It's the things we do to get ourselves prepared for that daily basis. You know, just like a professional athlete's not going to go out and they're not going to just jump on the field right on game time. They're going to show up and they're going to stretch. They're going to warm up. They're going to try to work on their swing, no matter if it's golf, football, or baseball. If it's football, they're going to go out there and run their drills, get used to catching, doing all the different things with their footwork, right? So just like them, we shouldn't just show up for our first appointment and ready to roll. We got to do stuff to get our brain right. So what you listen to the car, books you read, that 20 minutes you wake up in the morning is really crucial to getting through your conscious brain back down to your subconscious brain and making sure we're putting ourselves in a position to be successful by the time we get to that first appointment, right? We pull up to that appointment, what you listen on the car radio really is that mixture between that success or not, right? They always talk about the E versus E ratio. That's education versus entertainment. When you take basically education versus entertainment, apparently America is in a bad spot, right? We have so much entertainment thrown at us at all things. We got podcasts, we got television, we got, XM radio, we got, basically the news, we have, Netflix, Voodoo, Hulu, whatever thing that you're into. We got more things out there today to entertain us than ever before, man. Our phones are a constant entertainer. Man, I could jump on Instagram and scroll through countless hours of things that really make no difference in my life, right? It's not making me better. It's making me envious of what other people have. So remember what you put between your ears, whether it's something you're listening, motivational training, you might be listening to a video like this on your way to your first appointment. You might have your favorite, basic podcast speaker, might be a John Maxwell, might be basically whoever you might be into, right? Jocko Willink, whatever it matters. We want to make sure, again, you're putting things like that in your brain that get your mindset right so you walk into it. 90% of this business, it rolls in between that 6 to 8 inches between your 6 to 8 inches in between your ears. That's really going to help you succeed and get to that next level, right? So let's talk about a couple of things, man, because you wake up in the morning, let's take that, right? I jump up, make a cup of coffee. I drink that coffee, really, and I'm hanging out. That's entertainment, right? Turn on the news, see what happened last night, entertainment. By the time basically I'm on my way to car and I turn on that radio, again, more entertainment. By the time I basically get to work, I might do an hour or two worth of work. And then basically it's time for lunch. Now I go to lunch with people, which is more entertainment. Get back from lunch, get back to work. There, I'm talking about what happened at lunch, which is more entertainment. By the time basically I get a couple more hours of work done, now it's time to go home, right? And on that drive home, I turn back on my favorite radio station, podcast, whatever it might be, and that's more entertainment. By the time I get home, then I do my activities, maybe something with the kids, maybe it's later, so I turn on a show, whatever it might be, maybe have dinner with the family, more entertainment. And by the time I get ready, so I'm all worn out from that entertainment, set my favorite chair, turn on the TV, fall asleep, or basically take a nap, or really just wind down to try to relax and de-stress my brain, which again is more entertainment. Then I go to sleep, repeat, and do it again, right? They say the average American today basically learns less than basically 1 or 2 new things a year. Think about it. 1 or 2 things a year is basically that. So what percentage, right? How many books have you read last year? How many books did you read last month? How many books did you read last week, right? And there's that another whole theory. I can read 1 book, basically 52 times or 52 books one time. It depends on really what you want to get into and how much you want to learn something, right? Before we get into this, remember, an amateur practice to get it right, and a professional press can't get it wrong, right? So we're going to roll through some of these things. So as we talk about the approach, really, again, this is just getting your mindset, right? As we talk about entry, Now let's roll on to entry. Entry is one of those parts where we have to gain entry into the house, right? So as we walk up and we get out of our car, right? The hardest door sometimes to do is get to your car door because again, we got to make sure we're paired, right? That pre-flight checklist, what are the action items, things like that we roll through. Do I got my clipboard? Do I got my tape measure? Do I have my iPad? Is the battery full? Do I have a secondary, basically battery pack there? What do I have that is allowing me to get myself prepared to take this thing to the next level, right? As I get there and I got my clipboard, and generally what you want to do when you come to the door the first time, way we're training it here is basically we want to make sure we got a clipboard, maybe a tape measure, and an iPad with us, right? We don't want to bring, if in that clipboard you can have a brochure and notes and basically a notepad, our 4-page sheet we want to use inside there, which we'll introduce that in a few minutes here. But what we want to do is we want to have the bare necessities as we walk in, right? If you're one of those reps in the past that have brought up your samples and you got your bags and everything like that, and you show up, knock on the door, and you have all that clutter, well, what we might do is we might scare that customer right away, right? We don't want to scare that customer. We want to make sure that we put their mind at ease, right? So again, when we knock on the door, we want to basically stand 2 feet back, right? I say 2 foot, just like 2 to 3 foot. Door is 36 inches. A storm door, like in the Midwest, when it swings out, is generally 36 inches wide. I want to give myself enough space on that 3 feet to walk back. And the reason I do is basically, number one, like with crazy things like COVID, not to mention safety, it's good to be far enough back that you can step into a handshake or a fist bump, right? Today's day and age, we've got to be a little more careful with social distancing and things to make sure, again, that we're shaking people's hands or reaching out to shake people that they even want us to do that, right? That might be a turn off immediately. So as we step back and we knock on the door, we step back our 3 feet, right? 3 big steps away. In that hand, we want to have maybe a bag on our shoulder, a clipboard in our non-dominant shaking hand, and basically your tape measure should be in your bag or on top of your clipboard clipped in, right? We don't really want to have this thing sitting in our opposite hand because we need that clear, right? As we knock on the door, we always want to have a big smile on our face, right? Smiles are contagious, right? I know it's a lot of information. How's knocking on a door so freaking hard? Just let me knock on the door. Well, there's an art form to everything, guys, right? It's not the elephant that gets you, sometimes the mosquito. So as we knock on the door, we want to basically knock, knock, knock. Remember, friends knock, and basically advertisers ring doorbells, right? We don't want to ring the doorbell first. First thing we want to do is knock. Hopefully they were expecting us, which lets us know they were by the door ready, waiting to go, right? If you knock enough times, they don't come, then obviously ring the doorbell. But we want to make sure, again, we step back from there, right? As we step back, knock on the door, they open the door. We should be having, this should be our introduction. Hi, you must be Mr. Johnson. I'm Mr. Johnson. I'm Dustin Rose of Dream.Star Modeling. How are you doing today? Great. Hey, I'm here for our 2 o'clock appointment. Do you care if I step in? And we say, yes, come on, go ahead, right? Then what we're going to do is we're going to get our first thing. So let me repeat that again, right? As we knock on the door, could be version number 2 if version 1 doesn't hit you, because you already know you're contacting, right? Why would I ask, are you Mr. Johnson? Are you Mrs. Johnson? I want to make sure that I identify who I'm talking to. How do I know I'm not talking to the maid? How do I know I'm talking to the butler? How do I know I'm not talking to the kid, right? I want to make sure I identify who I'm speaking to, so I'm not introducing myself to somebody's not important, right? So, hi, you must be Mr. Johnson. I'm Mr. Johnson. Are you Mrs. Johnson? Yes, Mr. Johnson. Great. I'm Dustin Rhodes with Dream.Star Modeling. How are you doing today? Right? So again, that nature is when you ask that question at the end, how are you doing today? It elicits something where you're requesting an answer, right? Then we're going to do, as we step into the house, the threshold of the door, you've got to get familiar with this thing called the threshold question, right? Threshold question is your first major commitment that you're going to lead yourself towards to get, right? So pay deep attention. Threshold question is so important and so instrumental to starting this process right. Now remember, we just said hi. So why are we already starting to figure out how to get ourselves into a position where we can get that yes at the end of it? Because again, we want to get ahead of it and be strategic and deliberate in our approach, not be knee-jerk, right? So let's check it out. So again, the threshold question, when I step over it, rolls like this. Guys, wow, what a beautiful house. How long have you owned it for? They're going to listen. They're going to tell you, right? Because right now, no guards up. Well, we've owned it for 8 years. Oh, congratulations. Wow. What made you pick this house in this neighborhood? Next thing you know, they're going to say, well, we love this. We love it by the ocean, whatever area you live in. We're by this. We're by this. School zone here is really good. Wow. I can see exactly why you picked this house. What it sounds like to me is this a forever home. Basically you can use a toe tag house. You can do the thing, take a stick of dynamite to get you out of here. Whatever basically your flavor is, it's okay. But we're trying to find out that they're there and staying, right? So it sounds like to me, this place you guys plan on staying, no intentions of moving anytime soon? No. Great. So it sounds like to me, this is kind of forever home, right? Yeah. Awesome. Right? So let's think about that real quick. We rewind. We've already know how long they've owned the house. We know that they're there and staying, or maybe they tell you they're moving in 5 years, right? Either way, don't you want to know in the beginning rather than finding out at the very end? So again, we're getting ahead of objections. They're going to help us get to that next level. Next thing, after we're done with that, right? So again, we've gotten beautiful house. How long you owned it for? Next thing is, what made you pick this house, this neighborhood? Well, it sounds like to me, this forever home where you got no intentions of moving time soon, right? So the next thing we got to find out as we walk through, hey, do you guys got a place we can sit down? I can ask you questions before we get it to take a look at what you guys want to have done? Yeah, absolutely. Let me follow you, right? In a minute, we're going to talk about a thing called color code when we get a little deeper in here. But right now, we're going to stay on track, right? So as I'm walking to the table, right, we're going to basically just test the temperature. Test the temperature, because one of the things we don't want to do is get ourselves in a presentation and then literally 30 minutes or an hour into it, they're telling you they got to leave. And we're not prepared for that. And they're telling you we got to get out of here and we got to go sideways. We got to just move on, right? So one of those things that we want to make sure we accomplish here is we want to make sure we know that we've got some time. Hey, guys, great. I didn't catch you guys on an activity afternoon, you don't have a bowling or athlete or soccer or anything like that you're running out to. I needed to set a little time aside for me today. Oh yeah, absolutely. We got no place to go. Or hey, yeah, we got a hard stop in an hour, right? Now you can prepare yourself for basically how you're either going to set up a second visit if you're in a position where you can't get that business on the same day, or you know what you're dealing with, right? And it's best to get ahead of an objection instead of having to come up with all these tricky words and one-liners at the end of this, right? So hopefully that makes sense so far, right? So what we want to do is we want to roll through. And as we roll through, we sit down into it. We want to focus on basic form, right? So color code's great. We're going to talk about color code on a separate video. And that's going to have a lot to do with how you approach the personality type in your entry. And we're going to definitely spend some time on that, but that is basically class 201, not 101, right? Then we want to sit down at the table, right? So when we're sitting down at the table for our basic generalities, we're going to talk about basically things that have nothing to do with us. We're going to stay away from 3 little words in the English dictionary called I, me, and my until the appropriate time comes, right? Because when I talk about the words I, me, or my, that's things I like to share about myself, right? And you realize we're in this appointment to learn about your customers, not just to share everything about you. If you speak things you already know, you're not learning anything, right? I've got to learn about them and figure out how to get this ball rolling. Because before we get into this next acronym, right? And we're going to talk about the acronym. It's called F.O.R.M. It's F-O-R-M. F.O.R.M. stands for family, occupation, recreation, and then my purpose. We're going to go over what that my purpose piece of this in a minute. But first thing we got to do, the whole definition of this thing called warm-up, is to make sure that people are just being real. If I can make sure somebody's just being real, man, I got a lot of big things that I can accomplish here, and make sure that, basically I bring that guard down. We've limited the place where I'm a salesperson and they're a homeowner and I'm trying to take something from them that they feel uncomfortable with. Last thing I want to do is be trying to share stuff or help them in an environment where they feel like they got to protect themselves, right? So we got to, again, lower that guard. We got to make them feel like that we understand, right? That's why I love the saying before we get into this, right? In order to sell John Brown what John Brown buys, I must first see John Brown through John Brown's eyes. Let me repeat that for you again, right? And think about the real meaning of that. In order to sell John Brown what John Brown buys, I must first see John Brown through John Brown's eyes. What does that mean, man? So check it out. It means if I'm not able to look at a prospective customer through their eyes and kind of see what they're wanting to have happen before I tell them what needs to happen, I don't have much trust in it. So first off, we're going to fill up before we pour out, right? You ever try to pour out an empty container, right? An empty liquid. Could have a pitcher of iced tea or whatever I want to have. I try to pour that out, obviously, and there's nothing to pour. I'm really just wasting my time, right? So again, I need to fill up with all that basically liquid, with all the information I can before I'm able to share or pour out. What you say has no bearings until they feel like you care, right? So it's about family. So some of the breaking points on family is we're trying to find this thing at the very end of this thing called the shrine, right? The shrine is this piece that we're trying to find to make sure that we figure out what is important to them. What do they spend their money on? What are things that they value that they would spend above the other? I'm sure we all have it. If you were an athlete, say you're a baseball player, the type of baseball bat you carried, the glove, even the baseballs you took and hit it basically at batting practice or even home run derby made a big difference, right? What about your athletic shoes if you're a soccer player, right? What about if you're going to run a marathon? How important is the fitting of your shoes to the overall performance of it? What about a tennis racket? What about golf clubs, man? You wouldn't be known to go out and play Torrey Pines with a set of Basie McGregor clubs you got from Target. You're going to get smoked because, again, we got to make sure we figure out what to these people. Maybe it's makeup. Think about makeup, right? Whew. I'm a husband of a dearing wife that I love dearly. I've had to go out and buy my wife makeup, and I saw it on the floor, basically Walgreens or Rite Aid. And then I've also gone to like Lancome and some of these other, I might not even be saying that right. And the expense of these things is sometimes 10 times the amount of what you would buy. I about lost it the first time I had to go buy some toner or facial or whatever that stuff is. And I just saw the cost difference. It's amazing. And I asked my wife, she says it's worth every penny. So again, beauty and value is in the eye of the beholder. You're not going to share a story that you feel is valuable unless they share it first, because they would need to tell you what their value proposition is. And that's called a shrine. So I find that as, hey guys, real quick, let's get into role play mode, right? Hey guys, let me ask you a question, man. You guys from San Diego? Where are you and the family from? No, we're from San Diego. Or no, we're from Ohio. Okay, great. You're from Ohio. Wow. What brought you to San Diego? Work did. Okay. So how long you guys been in San Diego? We've been here for now 5 years. Well, congratulations. Wow. What do you miss the most about Ohio? Well, we miss the whatever they could tell you, whatever. Like, we love the Four Seasons. We love this. We love football back then. Okay, football. Wow. I mean, when you moved to San Diego, how's football in the family? Family a big football team or football players? What happens? Now we just enjoy the game. Okay, good. You guys, let me ask you. You said you moved out here for work, but I'm figuring out in family real quick. I could talk about that. I need to be careful with the right people. Like if I have a red, we're going to talk about in a minute. I don't want to be digging in too deep into family because they're going to be like, why is that your business, right? But like a blue, a yellow, a white, we're going to get into. You could do this all day long, right? So again, the family part of it, if they want to share it with you, let them keep going, right? But you got to sometimes shut them down so you keep on point. You don't want to waste an hour talking about their family, and then now suddenly you got to get started and they're out of time. So secondly is O, which is occupation, right? So great. So you said you moved here from Ohio. So when you moved from Ohio, let me ask you a question, right? What kind of industry are you in? Not what do you do? Are you a doctor? Are you a lawyer? Then they think you're profiling, right? What type of industry are you in? Well, we're in the medical industry. That's amazing, right? How long have you been in the medical industry for? Well, I've been here about 9 years. Ooh, 9 years you've been in the medical industry. Congratulations, right? You've been there so long, they probably write books about you, right? Do you have articles and stuff? No, not quite that good. Okay, great. So it sounds like to me you enjoy it, and obviously you moved out here. Let me ask you a question. Like, what? If you don't mind me asking, what part of the medical industry are you in? It might be pharmaceutical sales. It might be a doctor. They might be something, and you might be able to find a nugget that they want to talk about, right? Say they're in the tech world, or say that they're, basically selling pharmaceutical sales, right? Let me ask you a question, man. If I'm sure you guys have competition. How are you guys? You guys the most expensive, the least expensive? I mean, what is those things that cause you to be the most successful? And then you said you're not the cheapest. So how do you build value when somebody can go out and buy it cheaper? And they'll tell you. And you need to remember everything they say because you need to present to that same thing. And if I'm not taking notes on what they say, I might not want to take a note right when they give me a good nugget. But I need to remember that when they're doing something else, I need to write that down because I know my brain might not be able to remember that. You might have a lot better memory than I do, but it's always good to put it in writing because you can always revisit it. Remember, we got an hour to hour and a half where the grind here we're getting ready to get into. So the more I put on paper so I can focus on what they're saying, now what I remember is a big deal, right? So next, so I rolled down that next about recreation. Obviously San Diego, there's so much to do, man. I mean, what's different from the activities you did back in Ohio to do what you do now? What do you guys find your fun in? Kids are in sports. What kind of sports are they in? Football? Yeah, football, baseball, wrestling, whatever it might be, cheerleading. Great. So ask a few questions. Whoa, I've heard the gear for that's pretty darn expensive now. I mean, what's it cost like to do that? My kids are getting ready to get that age. They'll tell you, oh my God, the football cleats the other day cost $300. The pads cost this costs this, the traveling league costs this. Wow, that's a lot of money, right? Let me ask you, why'd you buy such expensive cleats? And they'll tell you, well, the performance of these works better, and at the level he's playing, I need to make sure he can turn good enough. And so it rolls through there. The baseball bat we bought was like $500. Wow, that's gotten expensive, right? I know the other day I was at Target and I saw a bat on there for like $100. What's the difference? Oh, those are crap, dude. They don't work well. They basically the performance and they don't last very long either. So obviously we're trying to get a scholarship or collegiate level. We need to make sure he's got the best tools in his hand. Wow. So it sounds like to me that performance and durability, and not only mention, I'm sure your kid appreciates carrying that appearance of that bat inside there. Probably a big deal, right? So think about what we're doing here. We're gathering that value proposition, right? It's just like I talked about my wife with the makeup. Why would you go to Lancome or MAC over basically going, I'm sure there's Jimmy, whatever the stuff there's tons of it out there. So if you're a female and you're correcting me, I'm wrong, I apologize in advance, right? So I'm sorry. But on that nature, we got to make sure, again, what's the separation of value and why do they see the value? Because later we need to talk about windows, doors, bathrooms, being the same as that. It's no different, right? The value proposition's there. But again, I need to find their shrine, the things they're willing to spend money on that walks up, right? So that recreation piece could be camping, could be camping gear, right? Could be as simple as a water bottle, right? If they got a hydro flask there and you see instead of the cheap like $10, $15 when you buy there from basically Target or Walmart, there's big differences in there. And if you just ask questions, people will tell you what they value. They'll tell you what they're willing to spend their money on, right? So at the end of that, right, we've gone through kind of our warm-up. We got to know a ton about them, right? We haven't really shared about us. Now, we want to stay, again, away from those words, I, me, or my, because that's going to lead the conversation where you become dominant. If you think about this whole time I've been going through F.O.R.M, family, occupation, recreation, before I get to my purpose here, there's a spotlight. And the spotlight, you see my beautiful shiny head here, is basically shining on them, which means they're the star of the show, or it's shining on you, which means you're the star of the show. Now, you're going to have your time to be the star of the show, but right now, we're filling up. And I can't fill up if all I'm doing is talking. So if you're one of those people that has a tendency to overtalk a little bit, stop. Just take a deep breath and let's make it, right? Always power pause. One of those things I always teach people, there's this acronym, right? It's called L.A.C.R. We always laugh around and go, L.A.C.R, L.A.C.R, right? So it's listen, acknowledge, confirm, and respond, right? So listen means we pause 4 seconds. Somebody says something that might get you up front. We'll talk about upfront objections in a whole different video, right? But we want to pause 4 seconds and let our brain catch up to what just happened, right? Because sometimes if I get reactionary, like this, said, okay, repeat after me real quick, okay? If I say this, just do it with me, just humor me, right? So again, if I say, you say this after, say it with me again. Say it with me 6 times. And I promise you at the end of 6 times, we'll see just how calm, cool, collected are, right? So remember that listen part. All right, check it out. All right, white. We're going to say white 6 times, okay? White, 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 white. What do cows drink? Yep, you're right. It's not milk, right? It's water. So when you think of that stuff, man, you get into that, it's real easy to want to jump because we always want to have a solution for every problem out there. So check that out, right? So again, we'll practice, maybe give you a little one, a couple modules out of here, right? But on this nature, let's talk about this real quick. So again, as I'm coming through and I'm trying to figure out why they buy that, listen, pause 4 seconds, basically acknowledge means, hey, thanks for sharing that. I get it, man, that's good info. I didn't think about that. Wow. Those are acknowledgments, right? Next thing is confirm, which means I repeat it back. Oh, great. So it sounds like to me, the reason you're asking me that is because you want to know this. And you repeat back literally the very thing they said. If they said, I want to know what color the white is, so great. Sounds like to me, knowing the color white's important to you. Is that what you would like me to answer? Yes. Okay, well, white is milk, not water, right? So we get into our answer then and talk about whatever it is we're trying to accomplish here, right? And then respond is we're responding. That's at ours. We're responding with the answer that best solves the solution of the question they asked us, right? So listen, acknowledge, confirm, respond. Hold on to that because we're going to be talking about that a ton throughout this whole process, right? That's called active listening. We want to learn that schedule, right? So at the end of this thing, after we find that out, and we give that a little warm up, now we're about probably 20 minutes in, right? Of 15 to 20, sometimes 25, 30 minutes, depending on how chatterboxy you get. You know, should never get into this thing for a whole hour because the beautiful thing about a warm up is it never stops. Should go the whole way through, right? So you're gonna have a test question on that. So remember, the warm up never stops, right? You're always constantly warming up. And remember, we never want to change the guy they met that they loved in the warm up. We want to stay that guy the entire time. Doesn't matter if you're showing the money, talk about the product, you're inspecting. We can change tone a little bit. We want to make them love us the entire time, right? Because, you know, people want to buy from like kind, and they want to make sure they like and trust you, right? If they like you, they'll listen, they'll trust you, they'll buy. So we got to really focus on not screwing this up in the very beginning, right? So now we're done, and we got that basically. We've been relaxed here. We've been setting up. Hey, real quick, just, let me tell you about what my purpose is here today. Did the office explain to you what to expect from today's visit? They didn't? Okay. Oh, they leave everything is hard for me. I got it. So real quick, let me just give you an agenda of what to expect from today's visit. Is that okay? Great. And yes, we're 20 minutes in, right? So we don't want to talk about business until we've made a friend, right? So again, that part of it, and sometimes you might be a red, which we might have to run to the product with the bathroom window and that, and then come back to this later, okay? But we never want to give this scenario before we're done with the inspection. If I give this next upcoming piece before we're done with the inspection, number one, it doesn't make sense. Number two, the second thing I'm going to talk about, which is our COVID savings program, which is kind of like an initial business savings or an upfront contract, depending on what you're used to, is literally going to lose its balance. Is going to make us high pressure. I don't want to be high pressure. I don't want to make us high pressure. I want to help us be successful. So we're going to set this on a tee from the beginning. So I'm going to role play it through, right? So hey, John and Mary, hey, thank you for sharing so much with me, man. Congratulations on having such an awesome family, dude. I hope to be as good a golfer as you someday. Man, your boat is amazing. The things you share with me, I'm going to have to go back and research it. I eventually want to buy a boat and be like you someday. You're amazing, right? So we pump them up. All right, so real quick, did the office explain you what to expect some days visits today? No. Great. All right, so first off, we're going to take a look at what you want to have happen, right? So we take a look at the windows, doors, bathroom, and what needs to happen. If we can help, and we decide that basically we're, the scope of work in here is within what we want to take and you want us to do, then we'll come back down after we take a small break. I go out and grab some stuff out of the car. We're going to come back and we're going to basically take a look at Dream Style and how we're relevant to your situation you're going on in the house. And basically, hopefully, with the unique circumstances, we found that we can actually help you take care of that. I'm going to tell you why we're qualified to do that, right? Secondly, is we're going to bring in some working samples. We're going to bring in samples, colors, choices, chips, lock, whatever it is that we have to accomplish right there to pick out. We're going to bring those in. So again, making sure that the product, colors, and choices we get fit the needs that you have to have happen on the circumstance you call us out for. And hopefully, we don't find much in the inspection, but then we find the inspection as well, right? Does that make sense? Great. And then last thing we're going to do is we're going to ask for your order today, right? Now, don't get me wrong. That will explain to you what that happens. We'll give you a price in writing that's good for a year from today's date. And that's going to protect you against price increases and the unforeseen circumstances. When you look just recently, 2x4 has gone from $2 up to $10, just like that, right? So again, we kind of give you that price in writing for a year from today's date. That gives you plenty of time to think about it, shop, do whatever you want to do, and there's no pressure, right? We don't care about that. You can come back anytime you want. Secondly, they did say you called off a promotional discount. You had to have that with you? At this point where we asked for the coupon, right? We asked them how they heard from us. Now, it would say on our lead slip where they heard it, but we want to ask them anyways because we're trust yet verified, right? So great. Let me take a look at this. Wow. Okay, this is a great advertisement here, man. Let me ask you, when you called off of this, did you like the no interest or did you like the discount better? Which one of those two did you like the most? And we're trying to see if they're basically they called because the same as cash or they called because of promotion, right? Because a lot of times, like when you buy a car, you get 0% or you get basically 5 years no interest, or you get basically a discount, you get a $2,500 rebate or a $5,000 rebate, right? So people aren't expecting the rebate and it together. Even though you might be able to offer it with your thing, we're trying to fish and see what motivated them to call, right? And they're going to tell you, well, yeah, really, we like the discount. Okay, cool. Maybe they think they're paying cash at that point, right? Or they say, no, we really love that no interest program on there. It's amazing. Okay, let me see. I'll go ahead. Let me take a note of that real quick. I'm just going to say this is okay if I hold on to it. Yes, set it aside. Cool. All right, well, cool. We'll go ahead and apply that at the end of the project as well, right? And again, any necessary or any advertised or unadvertised discounts in your area that apply. But again, we're going to apply that. That is one of the best I've seen, right? Lastly, we had this thing called the COVID savings program, right? Did they explain to you what this has accomplished now? Okay, great. So, man, they leave all the work up to me right now, huh? Just kidding. I might say a little joke before I get going, right? So, literally what happened is when COVID happened, we had to hire our efficiency expert come in and kind of analyze our cost of doing business. Because, man, we really were scared when COVID happened. And not to mention, with everything saying, last thing we want to do is get our office infected. Because think about it, that could shut us down for weeks on end, or basically come out to you and bring something to you in your home. And that's the last thing we want to do, right? So what we did with this efficiency expert, they said that they went surveying. They said 80% of people, when we visited them, were already ready to move forward on the first visit, right? Now, still others needed a second, third, even a fourth visit. So don't get me wrong, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner. We'll come back on a time frame that's comfortable for you to move forward whenever you're ready to do so. So don't think there's any pressure on that, right? So what the efficiency expert said is we really benefited people who move forward on the first visit, because at DreamStyle, we got hundreds of representatives visiting people 7 days a week, helping people with challenges like you called us out for, and some of the stuff that we might find on the inspection. We don't know if we're going to or not, right? And then basically they said if we offered a basically extra discount at the time of the appointment to save efficiency and kind of create safety for the business. Because think about it, if we got to come back and see you again, the likelihood we might see somebody and then bring something back to you that you wouldn't want back inside your house, we didn't really want to take that risk. And the fact that if we brought something back to you, think about that, then we're taking it back to our facility, which could shut us down for weeks. So one of the reasons we can do that is we can offer you, we call it COVID savings appointment or COVID savings program at the time of the appointment, which is an extra incentive to help us basically not spread the disease or basically create any havoc or even scheduling defects on us. It'll help you basically save a little money at the end, right? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you, if you like what you see and trust through the work and you want to grab a hold of that discount, be sure to let us know at the end of it, because the last thing I'm going to do is share it with you and take it away if you're not ready to use it, right? Does that make sense? So cool. So today I'm going to give you a price good for a year from today's date, good for basically the promotional discount. We talked about one of the best one I've seen. Look like you like that 20% off. And then again, whether you choose to or choose not to take advantage of that COVID savings program, will be available for you. Does that make sense? Cool. All right. Well, before we get up, I'm going to stop and I'm going to ask a few questions, and we're going to go take a look at your project, right? So now we're going to stop right here. We've gone through step one. That's a good analysis, step one, right? So let's talk about the key takeaways here of step one. Number one, on the approach, did I make sure I made that great last impression? Did I show up with a smile on my face? Did I get my threshold question, right? The real first commitment to that threshold question. Got a beautiful house. How long have you owned it for, right? Because we're going to find out in a minute how long they've been thinking about doing the project and some of the other things. We're going to be able to tie that first commitment in. And if I miss that, I'm in trouble, right? Number two, are they there and staying? Are they going to move? Are they in that house to stay and not have to basically make a big fiasco when they hit you at the end of it and says, I love everything you have to say, but if we were staying in this house forever, we'd do it with you. I would remove that objection up front so I don't have to deal with that later. That's what that part of it's designed to do. And then basically, hey, you did set some time aside for me today. I didn't catch you on a bowler, soccer night, whatever it might be. So you're making sure that they're going to be there and allow you to give you time to present. So if you think about this whole thing, guys, what you're doing is you're setting the stage to continue. You're setting the stage for your entire appointment. And if you as a representative decide to stand on that stage and that stage is right to go, present away. Because again, we already know what the ratios are when we start getting this done, right? They say if there's 10 people, 4 people, you're not going to help no matter what. Well, it might be more than that as long as how great your call center is. Let's just say on average that 6 of those 10 people you see are going to move forward, right? So out of those 6, our goal is to go 1 for 2. right? 1 for 2 keeps you to 30% close. That should really be your minimum when you look at this industry. We're going to talk about the benchmark video that we're going to do as an intro. That's going to kind of show you what your benchmark should be, right? But right now, 1 for 2 is going to go. When we get in that presentation, it ain't too bad, right? 1 for 2, that's pretty easy. All right, so the next thing on there, when I sit down and I find out my basically family, occupation, recreation, and before I get to my purpose, I want to find their shrine, right? Hopefully I've gotten to know a little about them, their family, where they're from, some of their tendencies, some of those hooks that roll in there. I want to make sure, again, that I found out as much information as I need, not to mention I find that shrine, which is going to help me throughout that presentation, help them against themselves, right? And then lastly, I want to set the agenda and let them know that, we're going to take a look at what you want to have done, what needs to be done, and if we can help, was kind of a takeaway, right? And then basically we're going to talk about our COVID savings program and kind of set that whole thing up again, right? This video said you can rewind it and take it back through. And not to mention, we got it in writing for you. So again, you can learn to memorize this. My advice to you is let's memorize it word for word, and then you can change it to meet your category. But get with me or get with one of the managers and make sure that it makes sense. Hopefully that helps. Welcome to step 1. And this is the end we're going to roll through again. And at the end of this, even though you might go through it once, you got to ask yourself these 3 questions are wrapping up, right? Number 1, am I doing it? Number 1, are you doing it every time you walk in the house relentlessly, right? You can master a process system. You cannot manage chaos. Number 2, not only number 1, am I doing it? Number 2, have I mastered it? Do I feel like I'm as good as I'm ever going to be in this step? Have I become a perfectionist at reading body languages, personality types? Have I figured out my form? Have I just got it to where I don't leave any loose ends on the table? And the last thing, 1 and 2, am I doing it? Have I mastered it? Number 3, do my results prove that I mastered it? And once that happens, you take it to a new level, right? So we need to make sure that we get into what we call Cleanerville, not closer, and definitely not cooler. We might start out as a cooler, but we got to get up to a closer real quick, and then a cleaner, which is that top performer, Michael Jordan, some of those people. We talk about the book Relentless. Just really take this thing off tight. All right, guys, we'll see you in step 2. Take your notes, study, and watch this video as many times you need. So again, we'll see you on the board. Thanks, guys, and have a great afternoon and evening study. Bye, guys.